Counterfeit perfumes are worse, right? So testing has found there are things in there like methanol, all kinds of contaminants, including animal waste. And one of the tests even found horse urine. This is increasingly about consumer safety, where people spray untested chemicals onto their skin. When you see a perfume that's supposed to cost, $200 retail, and somebody sells it for $50 because it's an overstock item, it's not. And don't spray horse urine on your neck.
The Imitation Nation podcast covers all things counterfeit, hosted by Shabbir and Sven of the Partnership for Safe Medicines and Sven Bergman of Venture Global. Fake cosmetics, fake perfume, and fake iPods, all coming up on Imitation Nation. All right, Sven, welcome to Imitation Nation number 30.
It's a big anniversary. I think we should be celebrating with like champagne or give each other some like eccentric gifts. So I think I actually owe you some sake, so I'll have to get on that. Happy 30th.
I actually had a party the other night. Several men and dads came over, and I made steaks, and we sort of talked and had a whiskey tasting, and I'm actually quite low of whiskey now, which, let me tell you, was a little painful the next 2 days as my hangover slowly worked its way through. But I'm a great believer in trying to maintain adult friendships, so I was putting my all into it.
Very much agreed. Sad we don't bounce back as easy when we're in our 20s, but moving on.
So I just want to highlight as my first story the ACAP Center at Michigan State University, an important consumer survey they did. So MSU's ACAP Center surveyed 5,000 adults from 8 countries around the world about their experience buying counterfeits. And I was shocked to see that 1 in 5 consumers was deceived into buying counterfeits, according to their survey. 1 in 4 knowingly purchased them, which is super, super disturbing. 1 in 10 had bought medication online and experienced either a financial or health impact from that. And individuals who reported buying counterfeit pharmaceuticals were more likely to be male, younger, millennial and Gen Z, married, highly educated, high-income earners, and frequent online shoppers. They were also, not surprisingly, likely to report lower levels of health literacy.
Wow. Yeah, listen, these stats are concerning. Things that concern me about it when I read the study for the first time. It used to be, right, that it's the older population, right? I don't understand the internet and what is all of this, and so I get duped more. The fact that, male, younger, millennial, Gen Z are doing this more, I think speaks to, this weird dynamic now where this generation is so comfortable with new technology that they think they kind of know a lot about it, which they do. But it furthermore talks about this impact that things you and I do here right now, podcasts, right? Where just somebody starts to talk about, oh yeah, I'm taking this peptide. There's some very large, and I don't want to name them because I don't want to upset them, some very large podcasters who talk about peptides and talk about certain psychoactive substance they like to take. And, these large podcasts create this illusion of science and legitimacy. And then these large followings follow it and buy it. And, they then end up on websites where they buy peptides or they buy other kind of designer things. I recently fell down a TikTok rabbit hole and it was about looks maxing, which I didn't know was a thing, where a young Gen Z is all about how can they look, and they actually hit their jawline with hammers to make it look, and they inject all kinds of things. So a lot of that might be the influence of new media and these unverified so-called experts talking about health products.
It's poor health literacy is probably one of the number one ways in which you're going to find yourself buying and taking a counterfeit medicine. It's very highly correlated. But the fact that there was so many, like 1 in 10 people experience a negative health effect or a negative financial effect, either you lost your money or you bought something that you took and it ended up not being healthy for you and you had a negative effect. 1 in 10 is a big number. That's actually the first time I've seen a number that's actually been quantified with a large, multi-thousand person study, and
Yeah.
it's disturbing.
No, and 1 in 10, quite honestly, that number is probably low because that number is self-reported, meaning that person needs to say, "Yes, I was defrauded." The actual, like, "I was defrauded, but I don't wanna talk about it," is probably even higher.
Yeah.
So you're right. Seeing that is problematic, and really the main stat here is this number is not going down. Like, all of these numbers are going up. And so, yeah, internet literacy, pharmaceutical literacy, understanding scams more and more will become increasingly important. And furthermore, and I'm seeing it on social media with AI, as we predicted actually beginning of last year. These AI videos and promotions are getting so good that I have to take 2, 3 takes to, like, is this real? Like, they take a celebrity and then AI will fake words over, like, it will be an administration official, won't name who it is, that will look like he's giving a press conference, and the words are doctored over top of that person now touting the benefit of something. And you got to really look and see that the lips don't quite line up with what that person is saying. So AI will make this even harder to detect. Should I really be injecting myself with X, Y, and Z? So yeah, no, it's this was a very, very troubling study. Definitely not heading the right direction. And everybody gotta do way more education to warn people of these harms.
Yeah, well, I know the FDA is on this, but the issue with health misinformation is a serious problem. I even see it on my own Facebook feed, which is basically a reflection of where that comes from. I saw someone claim that because 6 young women in his town all had a negative reaction to the vaccine for cervical
Yeah.
cancer, that anecdata was really
Yeah.
data. And a physician had to slowly and carefully explain that, there's a lot of reasons that they could have had the reaction that they had. It's not necessarily a vaccine. And this person could not be convinced otherwise and is probably not going to let their daughter get that vaccine, until they're old enough to make that choice without their parent.
Wow. Yeah, crazy. No, and the last thing for me, and this is unsolicited consumer advice: use AI to fight AI. So what I do is when I see an ad that, like, seems really good, or like a product, so I'll admitting my vanity is my hairline. I like my hairline, but I see recessions, and so it always bugs me, right? So, and obviously, since my phone listens to everything I do, knows that, and so I get fed all these ads with, like, use this. And what I do is I take the ads and I either screen record them or do a link to it, and I feed it into my AI and ask, is this real? Or what is and the AIs are really good about saying there's a scientific study, there's not, this is just hogwash. And so it is really good. So I do it actually for a ton of products where I feed it in, like, is there something good? And when you do it, not surprisingly, 95% come back with, like, yeah, that won't do a thing. And so it is, so I use AI to fight, smarter and smarter scammers, because I'm using tech to protect me from these people that are definitely working very hard to deceive us all. All right. So I want to spend a minute to talk about something a little bit different, and I want to talk about counterfeit fragrances. Right? It's something we haven't covered on this pod before. It's been around, it exists, but what I see right now, that this category is increasing drastically, not only in the US, but especially also in Europe. And I'm now starting to see this seeping back over into the United States. So, as an example, there's increasing seizures. A big one recently was done at Port Everglades in Florida, where federal authorities seized over $1 million worth of fake designer perfumes, and there was roughly 8,500 units. And it's big brands, right? So it's Gucci, it's Burberry, Armani, and this is not an isolated incident. That's just one of the many that I get almost on a daily feed of these counterfeit perfume seizures. And so we're really seeing the volume of these move up. And why I think this is really significant, perfume is like, it's an ideal target for criminals, right? There's a high demand for it. There's strong branding. The original is very expensive, so it gives this pricing umbrella to do a counterfeit that allows me to make a lot of money. And so that's a great target for criminals. But what doesn't get enough attention, and I want to bring that really as the attention to this piece, what's inside these things. I know in one of the recent pods we had the AAFA on door who talked about what's in counterfeit clothing. Counterfeit perfumes are worse, right? So testing has found there are things in there like methanol, all kinds of contaminants, including animal waste. And one of the tests even found horse urine as part of this. So this is really more about than just IP theft. This is increasingly about consumer safety, where people spray untested chemicals onto their skin. And so it's a real issue that continues to grow.
Last summer, Sarah and I went to Mexico City. It was my first time. We were walking around the city on a walking tour, mostly eating food. And we wandered past, and I went into a counterfeit perfume store. And they had walls and walls and walls of jars of liquids. And they would have you fill. You would say, I would like, a Chanel number 5. And they would say, okay, that's going to be these 7 chemicals mixed together will be a good approximation of Chanel number 5. And they didn't actually put it into a Chanel bottle, but it would not have surprised me if I saw a Chanel bottle in that store. And if I had, it would not have been real.
Which is actually kind of really interesting. You just bring a really interesting point. If I don't put it in a Chanel number 5 bottle, it's technically not a counterfeit, because I don't know how many scents have been able to design, trademark, dress the scent itself. So if it just smells like it, but it comes in a regular vial, I can't go after it with a Lanamak. So that's actually pretty clever.
Well, some of the marketing I saw on the posters on the wall used Chanel's trademark name. So,
well, of course,
my guess is that would sink them from a good litigation, a good civil litigation.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. So yeah, when folks, again, this is one of the things, when you see a perfume that's supposed to cost, $200 retail and somebody sells it for $50 because it's an overstock item, it's not. And don't spray horse urine on your neck.
So one of my favorite websites is Wirecutter. It's one of the reasons that I subscribe to the New York Times for our household. And they did a test purchase of cosmetics, 12 cosmetics from the original manufacturer, and then 12 from Amazon. And then the author from Wirecutter, the reporter, worked with an expert to look at the cosmetics that they bought from Amazon that were often, if not significantly cheaper, to see if they were counterfeits or not. Guess how many counterfeits they got when they bought cosmetics off of Amazon?
Probably 30 or 40%.
100. Every one of the 12 cosmetics they bought was counterfeit. And one of them, the expert said, looked like it was the tube was a little swollen from microbial growth, which is supposed to be a face cream. That was
They didn't get a single genuine. It was 100% counterfeit. That is awful.
Yeah.
And just to clarify again, those were third-party sellers on Amazon, right? It wasn't Amazon directly. It's third-party sellers on their platform.
Yeah. And the author, gave a lot of really good standard advice. Don't buy it if it's too cheap to be true. When you buy it from the original manufacturer, it's very, very likely, unless you actually typed in the domain name wrong. There's, these lookalike websites that have got a typo in the domain name that have been set up that look just like the real thing. But for the most part, the bottom line for that story was, if you're buying it off a third-party platform like Amazon from a third-party seller, you're not going to get the real thing. It's very unlikely, especially with expensive cosmetics.
Well, and from the article, which people should read, sample size of 12 out of 12 is a really bad sign. But the numbers are insane, right? So CBP seized over 500,000 seizures in that area. Fake, up there is top 5 article behind like fake pharmaceuticals, etc. And when you look towards that, CBP and NAM, the National Association of Manufacturers, estimates that about 2% of counterfeit goods are the ones that are being caught. That means that from the 500,000 being caught, 21 million make it across. Like, that is a staggering number of counterfeit cosmetics that are in the United States.
So go check out the Wirecutter story. It was chilling. I don't know that I'll ever actually put another cosmetic on my face unless I know I got it from the legitimate manufacturer. If it's something from like Kiehl's that has stores, it's one thing. But if it's if a brand that doesn't have a store, you've got no recourse except to buy it from the original manufacturer. That's it.
Yeah, this is just really concerning. And when you look at the ingredient match, and like one of them was 2% ingredient match, it's like not even trying to be a counterfeit. And one of them is a high match, but it seems to be used. Ugh. So
Yeah.
yeah, back to the same as perfumes, buy legitimate, and I think these brands have to figure out, how do you really create a universe where it now allows for law enforcement, for customs, for CBP, for Amazon, etc., to figure out what is an authorized seller, right? These are not closed distribution networks. So I don't know if you're authorized to sell, what cosmetics of, skin SkinCeuticals or Drunk Elephant, Dior. Who is allowed to sell it? Makes enforcement incredibly hard. These brands really have to figure out how to create green lists or white lists or black lists to help with enforcement. But that's a terrifying report. Yeah, people definitely read up on it. I have a fun one here. So a 23-year-old man from Patterson, New Jersey, was arrested after a routine traffic stop in Fairfield, New Jersey. And that was a routine traffic stop, but it turned into a counterfeit case when he tried selling counterfeit to the police officers that had pulled him over. What had happened is the man was pulled over for a minor equipment issue, probably tail light out or something like that. And the officer noticed multiple boxed Apple products on the back seat and said, what's that all about? That's a side business I run. I buy legitimate products and then I resell them. And in the process of it, for whatever reason, decided he wanted to offer some of these Airpods to the police officers and says, "Oh, do you want to buy one for $50?" And so the police officers then started to really look at the AirPods and started to see, wait, every box has the exact same serial number on them. The packaging looked off. There were just these little counterfeit mistakes. So it wasn't even good counterfeit. And so they saw the red flags. They asked him for proof of purchase. Obviously didn't have anything. So he got arrested and is now being prosecuted for sale of counterfeit materials. We always say that criminals are really smart. Some are clearly not. I just love that story.
Some have a very short criminal career from a lack of intellectual capacity. Let's just hope that he doesn't try and bail himself out with counterfeit banknotes like the guy last week.
Yes. Might be the same guy. You don't know. It's so good. That's just fantastic. I'm sorry. Would you like to buy something to counterfeit, officer? It's not a line you should use. It's just fantastic. For me, it's always this is almost like Darwin law of criminals. Like, it's just, he's going to get selected out. Anyways, that's a super light story, but it's just fun. It's spirited.
So the world of counterfeit art is not one that we talk about very often, but a pair of forgers, a father-daughter pair, got busted in New York selling after years, honestly, of making counterfeit versions of Picasso's, Warhol's, Banksy's, and a Native American artist, Fritz Scholder. And they did, as you know, there's no track and trace system for unique art. There's simply the provenance, right? It's the history of who owned it and how it came to arrive in the hands of each of the owners. And they did the same trick that we've seen in counterfeit medicines. They were making up fake ownership histories of these pieces of art they were counterfeiting, and using the names of closed auction houses and galleries and owners in order to make it impossible to verify. So it looks real. And because they're people that have owned it are out of business, there's no way to actually reach them to have them say, no, I never did actually buy that.
Well, of course.
The father and daughter pair faces 20 years in prison and restitution of $1.9 million. And my favorite thing about this, apart from the fact that the New York field office of the FBI did a great job putting this case together in what is a relatively obscure area of counterfeit prosecution, is that The father-daughter's names are Erwin Bankowski and Carolina Bankowska. And the fact that they were counterfeiting Banksy products almost sounds like an alliterative poem. Bankowski and Bankowska faking the Banksy.
Wow. That is hysterical. You know, the funny thing about it is, for me, as I kind of scroll through the article, is obviously Bankowski and that's fantastic. But people should have noticed that it's probably not real because, I don't know, I'm not really that big in art, but I don't think I should be able to buy a Warhol for $5,000. I'm just saying, that seems like, who says, oh yeah, that's really a lost piece that, you know, for $5,000 I can pick up. Like some of these art pieces that are on here, and they're allegedly only defrauded $2 million for a total of 200 pieces. So they didn't sell it for a lot. So I know people said they got defrauded, but if I call you up and I say, hey, listen, I got an extra Picasso laying around and you can have it for, $10,000. I don't think you're the one that goes like, oh yeah, that's terrific. That you would know it's a fake. Like there's certain things where like you ought to know. So, so this will sound horrible and somebody can write nasty notes in the show note. I don't feel sorry for the victims here. I don't. If somebody sells you a Warhol for $5,000, it is fake. It just is. The same as if you buy this Cartier and you buy it on Canal Street and it's like this thick, it ain't real, right? When you buy a Gucci purse and it says Gucci on it, it's not real. It's just certain things. Now, having said that, they certainly threw the book at them. 20 years? Wow.
I think that they got them because of the 4 or 5 artists they named, one was a Native American artist. And there's special statutes for counterfeiting Native American art, or at least there's a special task force that took them down. But quite amazing, great work by the New York field office of the FBI, and interesting news in the world of counterfeit art.
Yeah, our show today was really interesting. It was very different than our normal show we do. With perfume, we had art, we had a criminal who was too dumb and should do a different line of business. And we had some really concerning stats about counterfeit medicine. So this was a very good, very different show. And with that, actually, also for the listeners, if you have an area you want for us to cover of some obscure counterfeit world that you like, I'd like to learn more about that, put in the comments, shoot us a note, let us know. We'll gladly dig into it and learn more about it, because as we learn more about these things, we gladly share them, kind of what we know and what should be done. And please do.
All right. Well, Sven, another week. We've got an interview coming up I'm excited about, but we'll probably have to record at least one news before then. So the next time I see you, you'll be riding into Washington, D.C. on your bicycle on the Police Unity Tour.
Next time you see me, I will have ridden into Washington, D.C. and will be 300 miles more tired and significantly more dehydrated. But anyways, Shabbir, lovely seeing you. And with that, read us out.
The Imitation Nation podcast is a production of Cause Stories and is the sole owner of this production. All statements are their own and not the opinions of their employers. Podcast management by Sarah Imber Safdar. Theme music written by Jonathan Boyle.